Okay, in this short video, we'll just finish off part workshop on company formation. Now we left it with section 10, which was listing the requirements for a company registration. Going back to Companies Act, section 10, so we need a name, a share, a shareholder, director. Something which is be aware of is one or more directors must live in New Zealand or live in an enforcement country, being a country we can sue people in, and these are listed. They also must have one or more shareholders. Now, one point about these two things here, directors must be a natural person, but shareholders can be a person, or they can in fact be a entity in themselves. Now, if we go to the register, some examples of this. I used alpha before to search for an entity. Here I've changed it to a shareholder and searched. And we come up with this list of various companies that start with alpha, so each one's different. And there we have Alpha 2013 Limited, and it's a 20% shareholder in Capital Kegs Limited. So we can follow this through, and what we'll find is Capital Kegs Limited has shareholding comprising 6 different people. So we have a family trust, we have a company, Alpha, the one we were talking about, and 3 natural persons. You can keep tracing through this, and you could go to Marvel Man Limited and see who owns it and look at its shareholders, and we'll see it's someone called Matthew Underwood. Now if we go back again to where we were, so Marvel Man owns 29.1% of the company we looked at called Capital Kegs alongside the target company which we're looking at, Alpha, and down here we see Matthew Underwood owns 0.004%, whatever the actual percentage is. The office doesn't show under 1%. So he owns some shares by himself personally, and he owns a company called Marvel Man, which has another 29% shareholding. We can discuss in class why people might have these structures. Now, if we go back to our list, it gives the percentage held. Now, if we go down a little bit and just find one's 100%, here we have Cascade Resources. So Alpha Investments owns 100% of Cascade Resources. And that's very clear when you go through and look at the shareholding. So we have one director, Simon Anderson, and we have a shareholding entirely owned by Cascade Resources. So since Cascade Resources is 100% owner of the New Zealand company, it's considered to be the holding company, and the New Zealand company would be considered to be its subsidiary. Notice that the offshore ownership is in Vanuatu. You always want to check these things, see where the shareholding's owned, see where the directors live. That can be useful. Now we could keep going through those companies and potentially check up the company in Vanuatu and see who owns it, depending on the Vanuatu system, which I'm not familiar with. If we look through here, you'll see there's quite a bit of foreign ownership. Hamilton, which is only foreign if you happen to live in Auckland. Otherwise, it's an hour and a half drive down the motorway. The Netherlands, it's one in East Tamaki, that's nice and close. Belize, so Belize is in South America near Guatemala, where Dr. Ropati went. And the rest seems to be New Zealand. Now, some of these things you need to look at very carefully when they're offshore ownership, such as Belize. This shareholder's at 2%, Alpha Cash, New Zealand company, 2% shareholder in a company in Belize by the look of it. So that's a New Zealand registered company. Now if we go to this company, which is a New Zealand company, and we look at its shareholding, which is extremely complicated, you'll see that we have a lot of people in the US, Belize, so pretty much that side of the world, and then Hong Kong, Malaysia, lots of Malaysia, there's not a single shareholding in New Zealand in this company. Okay. Now, the other thing about this company is it's got one director who lives in Hong Kong. So if Hong Kong is an enforcement country, that's fine. If it's not complying with the Companies Act, and we can look up the enforcement company at another point. So getting back to our major point here, we can search through the companies register to find who owns companies. And sometimes those will be companies, and we can search those companies. Sometimes we'll find that the companies that own companies are not New Zealand companies, and they are in fact registered in offshore jurisdictions, and we would have to go to the registers in those countries to find out any further information. And you will find in some, such as the British Virgin Islands, there is no list of shareholders. They are considered bearer shares, which is just like cash. If you hold the bearer share, you own the company. It means you cannot trace the ownership. If you're dealing with companies like that, you should exercise some caution. There's nothing illegal about it, but you want to simply be able to trace who the real people are. Now, let's go back to our company form, and we're going to ask the question here, is your name available for this business? Can you actually get it? So we went and looked at the business GOVTNZ, and we searched through the company's office, and you've just put in the name you want and seen if anybody else has got it. If they haven't, presumably you can get it. But the thing you need to look at and Google a little bit is the tort of passing off. If a sole trader is using that name and has been for some time, or it's trademarked, can these people take you to court to stop you using the name? And the answer is yes, and the court may order you to relinquish that name. The other thing to have a look at here is what would make your name unacceptable to the registrar. Now, we get that from the Companies Act, looking at names. So we have the name of a company, we have an application for reservation, and we have use. So the application gives the reasons why we might not have it, or be allowed to have it. And contravene an enactment such as royal names, identical to another name or one that's already been reserved, or offensive. So you may want to consider the question, and you can easily Google this as well, what is an offensive name to the company's registrar? Now, having a quick look at removal of companies, which I'm going to put into a part C. So we'll just stop this here to keep these videos short so it's not too much in one go. And we'll look at removing a company as a part C.